Ethan Cole had everything money could buy. A black Mercedes that turned heads, a tech empire worth millions, and walls around his heart so high that no one could climb them. But when his luxury car died in traffic and a skilled white mechanic named Claire offered to help, 3 words slipped from his mouth that would haunt him. "I don't let white women touch my car." What happened next was a collision of pride, pain, and a love neither of them saw coming. A story of a man forced to choose between the armor that protected him and the woman who could heal him. The road from that parking lot to redemption would test everything he thought he knew about trust, forgiveness, and second chances. If you're watching this, like this video and tell me what city you're from, because this story is about to get real. The afternoon sun beat down on the hood of Ethan Cole's black Mercedes as it sputtered and died right in the middle of Manchester Avenue. Cars honked behind him. Someone yelled something crude out their window. Ethan gripped the steering wheel and closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe slowly through his nose. Not today. Not this car. He'd bought this Mercedes with his first real paycheck after his company went public. Every inch of it represented something. The late nights, the rejections, the people who'd said he'd never make it. The leather seats still smelled new. The paint was flawless. And now, it sat dead in traffic like a $200,000 paperweight. Ethan checked his mirrors and popped the hazard lights. His phone buzzed with meeting reminders, but he silenced them all. He stepped out into the heat, his tailored suit immediately feeling too heavy. The honking got louder. "Move it!" someone shouted. Ethan ignored them. He pulled off his jacket and tossed it through the window onto the passenger seat. Then he tried to push the car toward the curb. It barely moved. The Mercedes was built like a tank. "Need some help?" The voice came from his left. Ethan looked up and saw a woman walking toward him from across the street. She wore navy work coveralls with Precision Auto stitched across the chest pocket. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she had a smudge of grease on her left cheekbone. She looked maybe 28 with an open, friendly face. "I'm good," Ethan said shortly, putting his shoulder into the car again. "You're blocking traffic," the woman said, not unkindly. "My garage is right there." She pointed to a modest brick building with a sign that read, "Precision Auto Restoration." "I can help you push it into our lot, and then we can figure out what's wrong." Ethan glanced at the building. It looked clean enough, professional. The kind of place that did honest work without overcharging. But something in his chest tightened anyway. "I'll call a tow," he said. "Suit yourself." The woman shrugged. "But you're going to be waiting a while. It's Friday afternoon. Every tow company in the Shui city is backed up." She was right, and Ethan knew it. He looked at his car again, then at the line of angry drivers behind him. He didn't have much choice. "Fine," he said. "Let's push it over." The woman smiled and moved to the driver's side. "I'll steer. You push from behind. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Together they got the Mercedes rolling. It was easier with 2 people. They guided it across the street and into the garage's small parking lot. Ethan's shirt was damp with sweat by the time they stopped. "There we go," the woman said, brushing her hands on her coveralls. She pulled a rag from her pocket and wiped her forehead. "I'm Claire, by the way. Claire Whitmore." "Ethan." He didn't offer his last name. "Nice to meet you, Ethan." Claire walked around to the front of the car and looked at the hood. "So what happened? Just died on you?" "Yeah, no warning. Everything was fine, and then it just cut out." Claire nodded thoughtfully. "Could be a lot of things. Fuel pump, electrical issue, maybe the battery. You want me to take a look?" That tightness in Ethan's chest came back, sharper this time. He looked at Claire, really looked at her. She seemed capable, confident. Her hands had the calluses of someone who actually worked with them, but those same hands were pale against the black paint of his car, and something old and bitter rose up in him before he could stop it. "No," Ethan said. Claire's eyebrows went up slightly. "No. I don't let white women touch my car." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan watched Claire's expression shift, surprise, then something harder to read. Around them, the noise of the garage seemed to fade. 2 mechanics who'd been working nearby both stopped and turned to stare. One of them, an older black man, put down his wrench slowly. Claire's face didn't change much. She just looked at Ethan for a long moment, her blue eyes steady. Okay, she said finally. Her voice was calm, professional. That's your choice. She took a step back from the car, then another. She tucked the rag back into her pocket and brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I hope you find someone who can help you, she said. Then she turned and walked back toward the garage office without another word. Ethan stood there, alone with his dead car and the weight of what he'd just said. The two mechanics were still staring at him. One of them shook his head and went back to work. The other one, a younger Hispanic guy, just kept staring, his expression somewhere between confusion and disgust. Ethan pulled out his phone and started searching for private mechanics. His hands weren't quite steady. Inside the garage office, Claire leaned against the desk and let out a slow breath. Her coworker, Lena Brooks, looked up from the computer where she'd been processing invoices. What was that about? Lena asked. She was 30, with dark brown skin and box braids pulled into a high bun. She'd worked at Precision Auto for 5 years, 2 years longer than Claire. Guy with the Mercedes, Claire said. She grabbed a bottle of water from the mini fridge and took a long drink. He doesn't want me touching his car. Why not? You're the best tech we have. Because I'm white. Lena's fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. He said that? Word for word. Claire set down the water bottle. Her hands were completely steady now, but her chest felt tight. I don't let white women touch my car. Jesus. Lena stood up and came around the desk. Are you okay? I'm fine. Claire meant it. She'd dealt with worse in this industry. Men who assumed she couldn't possibly know anything about engines, customers who demanded to speak to a real mechanic, guys who made inappropriate comments. She'd learned early to keep her composure and let her work speak for itself. But this felt different, more personal somehow. You want me to go tell him off? Lena asked. Because I will happily tell him off. Claire smiled despite herself. No, let it go. He can find help somewhere else. You're too nice, Lena said. She crossed her arms. That's racism, Claire. Plain and simple. I know what it is. Claire picked up a clipboard and pretended to study the work orders. But I'm not going to argue with him or try to change his mind. He made his choice. I'm not going to beg someone to let me do my job. Lena studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but if he comes back in here with that attitude, I'm saying something. Deal. Through the office window, Claire could see Ethan still standing by his car, phone pressed to his ear. He looked frustrated. Good, she thought, and then immediately felt bad for thinking it. She didn't know his story, didn't know what had happened to him to make him say something like that. But it didn't matter, did it? Whatever his reasons, he'd made a choice about her based purely on the color of her skin. That wasn't something she could fix or argue away. So she went back to work. 2 hours later, Ethan was still in the parking lot. The tow truck he'd called never showed up. The private mechanic he'd contacted couldn't come until Monday. His phone battery was down to 15%, and the Mercedes sat exactly where he and Claire had pushed it, dead and useless. He'd tried calling Marcus, his business partner and closest friend, but Marcus was in meetings all afternoon. Ethan left a voicemail that tried to sound casual but probably came across as desperate. The sun was starting to sink lower in the sky. The temperature was dropping. Ethan sat on the curb next to his car and put his head in his hands. What the hell was wrong with him? He knew the answer. He'd always known it. But that didn't make it any easier. When Ethan was 16, his mother died in a car accident. The insurance company dragged their feet on the payout, trying to find any reason to deny the claim. For months, Ethan and his father fought with adjusters and lawyers, almost all of them white, almost all of them treating the Coles like they were trying to pull some kind of scam. They talked down to Ethan's father, questioned every detail, made them feel small and desperate and helpless. Then, when Ethan was 23 and starting his first business, he'd trusted the wrong person. A woman named Jennifer who seemed smart and capable and who promised she believed in his vision. She'd embezzled $40,000 from him, money he'd borrowed from family, money he couldn't afford to lose. By the time he realized what was happening, she was gone. The police never found her. Jennifer was white. So were the insurance adjusters. So were half the people who doubted him, dismissed him, or tried to take advantage of him over the years. Ethan knew it wasn't logical. He knew he couldn't paint everyone with the same brush. But knowing something in your head and feeling it in your gut were two different things, and in his gut, in that deep place where fear and anger lived, he had learned to be careful, to protect what was his, to not give trust easily, especially not to white women, even if that made him exactly the kind of person he hated. Ethan lifted his head and looked at the garage. Through the windows, he could see Claire talking to another mechanic, gesturing with her hands as she explained something. She looked patient, competent, like someone who genuinely cared about doing good work. He'd been an asshole to her. A tow truck finally pulled into the lot, not the one Ethan had called, but one with Precision Auto painted on the side. The driver got out and walked over to the Mercedes, then into the garage to talk to someone. A few minutes later, Claire came out with a different mechanic, the older black man who'd been staring at Ethan earlier. Claire pointed at the Mercedes, said something to the mechanic, and then went back inside without looking at Ethan once. The mechanic walked over. He was maybe 55, with gray in his beard and kind eyes that had seen a lot. "I'm Raymond," he said. "Claire told me you're having trouble." "Yeah." Ethan stood up and brushed off his pants. "It just died. Won't start." "All right, let's get it into the bay and I'll take a look." "How much?" "Diagnostic is $95. If I fix it today, that goes toward the repair cost." Ethan nodded. Raymond hooked up the tow and pulled the Mercedes into the garage. Ethan followed, hyper-aware that Claire was somewhere nearby but refusing to let himself look for her. Raymond got to work. He was methodical and professional, asking questions about when the problem started and what Ethan had noticed. He checked the battery, the fuel system, the electrical connections. After about 20 minutes, Raymond straightened up and wiped his hands. "Your fuel pump's shot," he said, "completely dead. You're lucky it didn't damage anything else." "Can you fix it today?" Raymond checked his watch. "It's almost 5:30. I can get the part, but installation will take a couple hours. You'll be looking at 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock. Ethan wanted to say yes, wanted to get his car fixed and get out of here and forget this whole afternoon. But something made him hesitate. "Is Claire the better mechanic?" he asked. Raymond's expression didn't change. "Why do you ask?" "Just answer the question." "Claire's the best tech we have," Raymond said evenly. "She can diagnose problems I'd need an hour to figure out. She does meticulous work, and she cares about every car that comes through like it's her own." He paused. "But I can fix your car just fine if that's what you want." Ethan felt that tightness in his chest again. "Do it," he said. "I'll wait." Raymond nodded and went to order the part. Ethan found a chair in the waiting area and sat down. He could see into the main garage from here. Claire was working on a vintage Mustang, her movements precise and confident. She never once looked toward the waiting area. Ethan pulled out his phone and finally called Marcus back. "Man, where have you been?" Marcus answered. "I've got the contract ready to review and you're not answering." "My car broke down." "Seriously? The Mercedes? That thing's basically brand new. Fuel pump died." "Okay, well, get it fixed and get back here. We need your signature by end of day." "I can't. I'm stuck at a garage," Marcus sighed. "Fine. I'll bring the contract to you. Where are you?" Ethan gave him the address. They talked for a few more minutes about business, projections, investor meetings, the new office space they were considering. Ethan tried to focus, but his eyes kept drifting to Claire. She was explaining something to a customer now, her face animated and patient. She looked nothing like Jennifer. Nothing like the insurance adjusters, nothing like the people who'd hurt him. But his rule didn't care about that. When Marcus arrived 40 minutes later, he found Ethan still sitting in the waiting area, staring at nothing. "You look like hell," Marcus said. He was 34, tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of natural confidence that made people trust him instantly. He wore jeans and a polo shirt, his usual casual Friday outfit. "Thanks." Marcus handed over a folder. "Sign page 3 and page 7. I'll witness." Ethan signed without really reading. His mind was elsewhere. "So what's going on?" Marcus asked, sitting down next to him. "You're acting weird." "I did something stupid." "How stupid?" "I told someone I don't let white women touch my car." Marcus went very still. "Please tell me you're joking." "I wish I was." "Ethan, man, what the hell?" "I know. Do you, though?" Marcus leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "Because that's not just stupid. That's—" He stopped, shook his head. "Who'd you say it to?" Ethan nodded toward the garage. The mechanic, Claire, the blonde woman working on the Mustang. Marcus looked through the window, then back at Ethan. Let me get this straight. Your car broke down. A qualified mechanic offered to help you, and you turned her down because of the color of her skin. Yes. And now you're sitting here waiting for someone else to fix it. Yes. You realize how messed up that is, right? I know. Ethan rubbed his face with both hands. I know it's wrong. I know it's exactly the kind of thing I'd call out anyone else for. But in the moment, I couldn't do it. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was gentler. Is this about Jennifer? Probably. Ethan, that was almost 10 years ago. I know. And you can't judge every white woman by one person who screwed you over. I know that too. Ethan's voice came out harsher than he meant it to. You think I don't know how irrational this is, but knowing something and feeling it are different things. Then you need to work on feeling different, Marcus said firmly, because right now you're letting old pain turn you into someone you're not, someone your mother wouldn't recognize. That hit hard. Ethan's mother had been the kindest person he'd ever known. She'd raised him to judge people by their character, not their appearance, to give everyone a fair chance, to be better than the people who'd treated them poorly. He was failing her memory. What do I do? Ethan asked quietly. Marcus stood up. You apologize, sincerely, and then you do better. She won't want to hear it. Maybe not, but you still need to say it. Marcus squeezed Ethan's shoulder. I've got to get back. Call me later. After Marcus left, Ethan sat alone with his thoughts. Raymond finished the repair around 8 o'clock, just as he'd predicted. The Mercedes started perfectly on the first try, purring like nothing had ever been wrong. That'll be $750, Raymond said, including the diagnostic. Ethan paid with his credit card. He wanted to ask about Claire, if she was still here, if Raymond had told her what Ethan said about apologizing. But he couldn't make the words come out. Drive safe, Raymond said. Ethan drove home through the darkening streets. His apartment was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and steel and expensive views. He'd worked hard for this place, for everything he had. But tonight, it all felt hollow. He kept seeing Claire's face, that moment of surprise, then the careful blankness that came after, the way she'd stepped back from his car without argument or anger. Just quiet dignity. He'd hurt her, maybe not in a way that would leave a visible mark, but he'd hurt her nonetheless, and he had no idea how to fix it. Ethan spent the weekend trying to forget about Friday. He went to the gym, caught up on work emails, met Marcus for brunch on Sunday. But his mind kept circling back to the garage, to Claire. On Monday morning, he found himself checking the Precision Auto website. They had good reviews. 4.5 stars, with customers praising the quality of work and the friendly service. Several reviews specifically mentioned Claire by name, calling her knowledgeable and trustworthy and the best mechanic I've ever worked with. Ethan closed his laptop and tried to focus on work, but an hour later his car started making a strange noise, a clicking sound from under the hood that hadn't been there before. He could take it to a dealership, should take it to a dealership, but instead he found himself driving back toward Manchester Avenue. It was early Tuesday morning when he pulled into the Precision Auto parking lot. The garage was just opening. Claire's car, an older but well-maintained Toyota, was already in the lot. Ethan sat in the Mercedes for a full 5 minutes, trying to work up the courage to go inside. His hands were sweaty on the steering wheel. His heart was beating too fast. Finally, he got out and walked to the garage entrance. Claire was in the office, typing something on the computer. She looked up when the door chimed, and her expression went carefully neutral when she saw him. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her voice was professional, polite, nothing more. "My car's making a noise," Ethan said. "A clicking sound. It started yesterday." Claire stood up and came around the desk. "Is it the car Raymond fixed on Friday?" "Yes." "Then you should bring it in. We guarantee all our work for 30 days. She grabbed a clipboard. "I'll have Raymond take a look." "Wait." Ethan's voice came out too loud. He took a breath and tried again. "I was hoping you could look at it." Claire's expression didn't change. "I thought you didn't let white women touch your car." "I don't. Ethan stopped, forced himself to be honest. "I was wrong. About that. About what I said." "Okay. I'm sorry." Claire studied him for a long moment. Her blue eyes were sharp and assessing, and Ethan had the uncomfortable feeling that she could see right through him. "Apology noted," she said finally. "Let me get Raymond." "Please." Ethan didn't move. "I'm asking you, specifically. I want you to look at it." "Why?" It was a fair question. Ethan searched for an answer that was true but not too revealing. "Because Marcus told me you're the best, and because I want to prove to myself that I can be better than I was on Friday." Something flickered in Claire's eyes, surprise maybe, or respect. "That's honest, at least." "It's all I've got." Claire set down the clipboard. "All right. Pull the car into Bay 3. I'll be there in a minute." Relief flooded through Ethan, so strong it almost made him dizzy. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Claire said. "I haven't fixed anything." Ethan moved the Mercedes into the bay and killed the engine. When he got out, Claire was already there, tying her hair back and pulling on work gloves. She didn't say anything, just popped the hood and leaned in to look. Ethan stood nearby, feeling useless and awkward. He watched Claire's hands move over the engine, confident, methodical, like she knew every bolt and wire by instinct. She had the clicking sound isolated in under 2 minutes. "Raymond didn't tighten the heat shield properly," she said. "It's vibrating against the exhaust manifold. Simple fix." She grabbed a wrench and made the adjustment. The whole thing took maybe 5 minutes. When she was done, she started the car and let it idle. No clicking sound. Perfect silence. "Try driving it around the block," Claire said. "Make sure that solved it." Ethan did. The car ran smoothly. When he came back, Claire was wiping her hands on a rag. "All good?" she asked. "Perfect. What do I owe you?" "Nothing. It's covered under the warranty." "I should pay you something for your time." Claire shook her head. "That's not how warranties work." She looked at him directly. "But if you want to do something useful, you can tell me why you really said what you did on Friday." The question caught Ethan off guard. "Why does it matter?" "Because I've been thinking about it all weekend," Claire said, "and I can't figure you out. You don't seem like the kind of person who goes around saying racist things for no reason. So either I'm wrong about you, or there's something else going on." Ethan felt that old tightness in his chest again. "It's complicated." "Most things are." They stood there in the garage bay, the morning light coming in through the windows. Around them, the sounds of other mechanics working, tools clanging, engines revving, radio playing softly. "Someone hurt me," Ethan said finally. "A long time ago. Someone I trusted. And I've been carrying that around ever since." "A white woman?" "Yes." Claire nodded slowly. "That's honest. Thank you for telling me." "Does it make it better, what I said?" "No," Claire said simply. "But it makes it more understandable." She took off her work gloves. "Look, I get it. People hurt us, and we build walls to keep from getting hurt again. But those walls don't just keep out the people who might hurt us. They keep out everyone, including people who might help." "You sound like my friend Marcus." "Then Marcus is smart." Claire smiled slightly. "I'm not going to tell you how to deal with your past. That's your work to do. But I will tell you this. I've been doing this job for 6 years. In that time, I've had men grab my ass, tell me I should smile more, ask if my boyfriend taught me how to use a wrench, and accuse me of overcharging because they didn't think I really knew what I was doing. You know what I didn't do? I didn't decide all men are trash, because that would make me just as small-minded as them." Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. "Point taken." "Good." Claire handed him a business card with the garage's information. "Your car's fine now, but if you hear any other weird noises, bring it back. And next time, maybe save us both some drama and just ask for me from the start." "I will." Ethan took the card. "Thank you, Claire, for fixing the car and for—" He paused, "for giving me another chance." "Don't waste it," she said. Then she walked away to help another customer, leaving Ethan standing alone in the bay with his running car and a strange feeling in his chest that might have been hope. Ethan didn't go straight back to the office. Instead, he sat in his car in the Precision Auto parking lot for almost 20 minutes, staring at Claire's business card. She'd been direct with him, honest. She hadn't sugarcoated what he'd done or made excuses for him, but she'd also given him a chance to explain himself, and more importantly, she'd treated him like a person who could do better. It was more than he deserved. His phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "How'd it go?" Ethan typed back. "She fixed the car and maybe gave me some perspective." Good, now get back here. We've got work to do. But Ethan didn't drive to the office. Not yet. He needed to clear his head first. So he drove to Lincoln Park, parked near the lake, and walked along the water's edge. The morning was cool and clear. Joggers passed him on the path. A woman threw a tennis ball for her golden retriever. Everything felt normal and ordinary, but Ethan's thoughts were tangled and uncomfortable. He'd spent years building walls around himself, being careful about who he trusted, protecting what was his. It had served him well in business, made him cautious with contracts, skeptical of promises, slow to invest in partnerships, but it had also made him lonely in ways he usually didn't let himself think about. The truth was, Ethan didn't have many people in his life. Marcus was his closest friend, but even Marcus didn't know everything about him. There were parts of Ethan he kept locked away, places he didn't let anyone see. It was safer that way. Except it didn't feel safe anymore. It felt exhausting. Claire's words echoed in his head. Those walls don't just keep out the people who might hurt us. They keep out everyone. Was that what he'd been doing? Keeping everyone out? Ethan's phone rang. It was Marcus again, and this time Ethan answered. "I'm not coming in today," Ethan said before Marcus could speak. "What? Why not? We have the investor call at 2. You can handle it. You're better at that stuff anyway." "Ethan, what's going on with you?" "I just need a day. I'll explain later." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "This is about the mechanic, isn't it?" "Maybe. Did you apologize?" "Yeah. And she told me I've been building walls to keep people out." "Sounds like a smart woman." "She is." Ethan watched the waves lap against the shore. "I don't know what I'm doing, Marcus." "Join the club. Nobody does." Marcus's voice softened. "Look, take the day if you need it, but don't spiral, and call me later, okay?" "I will, thanks." After he hung up, Ethan stayed by the lake for another hour. He thought about his mother, who'd always told him that anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to get sick. He thought about Jennifer and the insurance adjusters and all the times he'd felt small and powerless. And he thought about Claire, calmly stepping back from his car without anger or argument, just quiet dignity. Maybe it was time to stop drinking the poison. Claire was under a Honda Civic when Lena found her later that morning. "So he came back," Lena said. Claire rolled out from under the car. "You were watching?" "Girl, everyone was watching. Raymond said the guy looked like he was about to pass out before he even came inside." Claire wiped her hands on a rag. "He apologized. Did you accept it?" "I fixed his car." "That's not the same thing." Claire sat up and leaned against the Honda's tire. "I know, but I don't know what else to do with it. He said someone hurt him and he's been carrying it around. A white woman, apparently." Lena's expression softened slightly. "That's rough. But it doesn't excuse what he said to you." "I know that too." Claire sighed. "I'm not trying to excuse it. But I also know what it's like to carry pain around, to let it make you do things you're not proud of." Lena crouched down next to her. "You're thinking about Derek." Claire nodded. Derek had been her boyfriend 3 years ago. He'd seemed perfect at first, charming, supportive, interested in her work. But over time he'd started trying to change her, suggesting she'd be prettier if she wore more makeup, asking why she didn't want to do something more feminine than working on cars, making little comments about her weight, her clothes, her ambitions. By the time Claire ended it, she'd started to believe him, started to wonder if maybe she was too much of this and not enough of that. It had taken months to remember who she was, to rebuild her confidence, to trust her own judgment again. "Derek was a controlling jerk," Lena said firmly, "and you got out. That's what matters." "Yeah, but I also spent a year after that assuming every guy who asked me out had an agenda. Turned down dates from perfectly nice men because I was scared." "That's different." "Is it?" Claire asked. "Fear makes us do stupid things, makes us judge people before we know them. I'm not saying what Ethan did was okay, but I understand where it comes from." Lena was quiet for a moment. "You're too forgiving sometimes, you know that?" "Maybe. Or maybe I just don't want to carry around anger that doesn't serve me." Claire stood up and offered Lena a hand. "Come on, we've got work to do." They spent the rest of the morning busy with regular customers. A brake job on a Subaru, an oil change and tire rotation for a regular who always brought them donuts. A tricky electrical problem in a Ford truck that took Claire almost 2 hours to diagnose. She didn't think about Ethan, or at least she tried not to. But around lunchtime, when she went to the office to grab her sandwich, she found herself looking at the appointment book. No new appointments under the name Cole, not that she'd expected any. "He's not coming back," Lena said from behind her. Claire jumped. "Who said I was looking for him?" "Your face did." Lena pulled her own lunch from the fridge. "And honestly, that's probably for the best. Guys got issues." "We all have issues." "Yeah, but most of us don't announce them to strangers." Claire couldn't argue with that. She ate her sandwich in the break room, scrolling through her phone without really seeing anything. When she went back to the garage floor, Raymond was waiting for her. "Got a restoration job that just came in," he said. "67 Mustang. Needs a full engine rebuild. Customer specifically requested you." Claire's face lit up. "Really?" "Really. It's a beauty, too. Original paint, mostly intact. Just needs mechanical love." Raymond handed her the work order. "Customer's dropping it off Thursday. Thought you'd want the heads up." "Thank you." Claire studied the details. A restoration project could take weeks, but it was the kind of work she loved most. The challenge of bringing an old car back to life, making it run like new. "This is perfect." "Figured you'd be happy about it." Raymond patted her shoulder. "You've been a little distracted today. Thought this might help." "Was it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's known you for 6 years. Raymond smiled. "Whatever's on your mind, don't let it rent too much space. You've got better things to think about." He was right. Claire threw herself into work for the rest of the day, and by the time 5 o'clock rolled around, she had almost managed to push Ethan Cole out of her thoughts. Almost. 3 days passed. Ethan threw himself into work, trying to make up for the day he'd taken off. He and Marcus closed the deal with their investors. They hired 2 new developers. They toured the potential office space and put in an offer. Everything was going well. Everything was moving forward. So why did Ethan feel like he was standing still? On Friday evening, Marcus dragged him out for drinks at a bar downtown. It was the kind of place with exposed brick and craft cocktails, full of young professionals celebrating the end of the work week. "You've been weird all week," Marcus said, nursing a bourbon. "Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." "Too bad. I'm asking anyway." Ethan stared into his own drink. Scotch, neat, expensive. "I can't stop thinking about what she said." "The mechanic, Claire." "Yeah, about walls keeping everyone out." Ethan turned the glass in his hands. "I've been thinking about all the chances I didn't take, all the people I didn't let in, because I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Getting hurt again. Losing control." Ethan took a sip. "You know my dad left when I was 14, right?" Marcus nodded. "You mentioned it once." "What I didn't mention was why. He left because after my mom died, he couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle his own grief. Couldn't handle being a single parent. So he just walked away." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Told me I was old enough to take care of myself. Sent money every month like that made it okay." "Man, I'm sorry. I didn't know it went down like that." "I don't talk about it much." Ethan set down his glass. "But after he left, I learned not to need people. Learned to be self-sufficient. To control everything I could control, because so much was out of my hands. And then Jennifer stole from you." "And then Jennifer stole from me," Ethan confirmed, which just reinforced what I already believed, that trusting people, letting them in, giving them access to your life, it's dangerous. It makes you vulnerable. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "But you trust me. You're different." "Why? Because I'm a man. Because I'm black." The question hung between them. Ethan wanted to say yes, but that wasn't entirely true either. He trusted Marcus because Marcus had proven himself over years, because they'd built their business together from nothing, because Marcus had never asked for anything Ethan wasn't willing to give. But that was the point, wasn't it? Ethan only trusted people who proved themselves over and over, who never asked too much, who stayed at arm's length until Ethan decided to let them closer. "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "Maybe I'm just messed up." "You're not messed up, you're human." Marcus signaled the bartender for another round. "But here's the thing, man. You can't live your whole life waiting for people to prove they won't hurt you. Sometimes you have to take a risk. Sometimes you have to be vulnerable first." "That sounds terrifying." "It is," Marcus grinned. "But it's also how you find the good stuff, the real connections. You think I met my wife by playing it safe? Ethan smiled despite himself. Marcus had met his wife, Jasmine, at a salsa dancing class he had no business being at. He'd stepped on her feet twice and apologized so profusely that she'd laughed and agreed to get coffee with him. They'd been married for 3 years now. You got lucky, Ethan said. No, I got brave. There's a difference. Marcus leaned forward. Look, I'm not saying you need to go back to that garage and pour your heart out to this woman. But maybe you could start small. Be friendly. Let your guard down just a little. See what happens. What if what happens is I get hurt again? Then you get hurt, and you survive. And you learn something about yourself, Marcus shrugged. Or maybe you don't get hurt. Maybe you find out that not everyone is out to take advantage of you. Maybe you make a friend. Or more than a friend. Ethan raised an eyebrow. I didn't say I was interested in her that way. You didn't have to. I know you, remember? They drank in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Around them, the bar buzzed with conversation and laughter. A group of women at the next table were celebrating someone's promotion. 2 guys by the window were arguing good-naturedly about basketball. Everyone seemed so easy with each other, so relaxed, like vulnerability wasn't something to fear. I wouldn't even know what to say to her, Ethan said finally. Start with, thank you for fixing my car. Go from there. That simple? That's simple. Marcus finished his drink. You want my advice? Go back to that garage Monday morning. Bring coffee. Don't make it weird. Just be a decent human and see where it goes. Coffee? Everyone likes coffee. What if she tells me to get lost? Then she tells you to get lost and you leave her alone, but at least you tried. Ethan thought about it. The idea made his stomach twist with anxiety, but it also felt right somehow, like taking a step in the right direction, even if he didn't know exactly where that direction led. Okay, he said. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Claire spent her Friday evening working late on the Mustang restoration. The car had been dropped off that morning, and she'd spent the day documenting every detail, taking photos, making notes, assessing what needed to be done. It was going to be a big job. The engine needed to be completely rebuilt. The carburetor was shot. The electrical system was a mess of corroded wires and failed connections. But underneath all that, she could see the beauty, the solid bones of a classic car that deserved to run again. You're still here? Lena poked her head into the bay. It's almost 7. Just finishing up some notes. The car's not going anywhere. Come get dinner with me. Claire looked at the Mustang, then at Lena. Yeah, okay. Let me wash up. They went to a Mexican place around the corner, the kind of neighborhood spot with checkered tablecloths and handwritten specials on a chalkboard. Claire ordered enchiladas and a margarita. Lena got tacos and told stories about her sister's upcoming wedding. She wants me to wear pink, Lena said, making a face. Pink? Do I look like someone who wears pink? Claire laughed. You'd look beautiful in pink. That's not the point. The point is I'm going to look like a cupcake. Lena took a bite of her taco. Anyway, enough about my fashion disasters. What's going on with you? What do you mean? You've been distracted all week, ever since that guy came back. Claire sipped her margarita. I have not. Claire? Okay, fine, maybe a little. Claire pushed rice around her plate. It's just, he was so honest, you know, about why he said what he said, about carrying pain around, and it made me think about the stuff I carry around. Like Derek. And my dad. Claire's father had left when she was 12, just disappeared one day without explanation. Her mother had raised her and her younger brother alone, working 2 jobs to keep them fed and housed. Claire had learned early that you couldn't count on men to stick around, which was probably why she'd been single for 2 years now, why she found excuses not to date, why she kept herself busy with work and told herself she was happy alone. You think maybe you judged this Ethan guy too fast? Lena asked gently. No, what he said was wrong. Claire met her friend's eyes. But I also think people are more complicated than their worst moments, and maybe he's trying to be better. So what are you going to do about it? Nothing? He's a customer. I fixed his car. That's the end of it. But what if it's not? Then it's not. Claire took another sip of her drink. But I'm not going to chase after some guy who starts things off by saying something racist to me. If he wants to be in my life, even just as a friendly customer, he can put in the effort. Lena raised her glass. That's my girl. Make him work for it. They clinked glasses and changed the subject. But later, when Claire was home in her small apartment, she found herself thinking about Ethan again, about the look on his face when he'd apologized, the honesty in his voice when he'd admitted someone had hurt him. She wondered what his story was, who had hurt him and how, whether he was really trying to change or just saying what he thought she wanted to hear. Claire pulled out her laptop and, before she could talk herself out of it, Googled his name, Ethan Cole. She found him pretty quickly. There weren't many black millionaires in the city, and he'd been featured in a couple of business articles. The photos showed a serious-looking man in expensive suits, usually standing next to Marcus Reed, his business partner. The articles talked about their company, a tech startup that had recently secured major funding. They described Ethan as driven, disciplined, and intensely private. One article mentioned that he'd started the company after a previous business venture failed. Another mentioned that he'd grown up in Chicago, lost his mother young, and built his fortune from nothing. Claire closed the laptop. She didn't want to know more, didn't want to get curious, didn't want to start caring about this man's story. But she had a feeling it was already too late for that. Monday morning came with gray skies and the threat of rain. Ethan woke up early, went to the gym, showered, and stood in front of his closet for 10 minutes trying to decide what to wear. Business casual felt too formal. Jeans felt too casual. He finally settled on khakis and a button-down shirt, then changed his mind twice before forcing himself to just get dressed and go. He stopped at a coffee shop on the way to Precision Auto, ordered 2 medium coffees, both with room for cream and sugar, since he didn't know how Claire took hers. His hands were shaking slightly as he paid. This was ridiculous. He was a grown man, a successful businessman. He'd negotiated million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. Why was bringing coffee to a mechanic making him so nervous? Because it's not about the coffee, a voice in his head said. It's about what the coffee represents. An olive branch, an attempt at connection, a risk. Ethan got back in his car and drove to the garage before he could change his mind. The parking lot was mostly empty. It was only 7:30 in the morning. But Claire's Toyota was there, and through the windows Ethan could see lights on in the main bay. He grabbed the coffees and walked inside. Claire was already working on the Mustang, her upper body hidden under the hood. She had music, playing softly, something folky and acoustic that Ethan didn't recognize. "Morning," he said. Claire jumped and hit her head on the hood. "Ow! Jesus!" She backed out, rubbing her head, and turned to glare at him. "You scared me." "Sorry, I brought coffee." He held up the cups like a peace offering. Claire stared at him. "Why?" "Because I wanted to say thank you for fixing my car last week, and for," he hesitated, "for being decent to me when I didn't deserve it." Claire's expression softened slightly. She took one of the coffees. "You didn't have to do this." "I know." She took a sip, then made a face. "No sugar?" "I got you room for cream and sugar. I didn't know how you'd take it." 3 sugars, lots of cream." "That's specific." "I like sweet things." Claire walked over to a small table where a sugar container and some coffee creamer sat. She doctored her coffee while Ethan waited awkwardly. "So," he said finally, "what are you working on?" "67 Mustang, full restoration." Claire gestured at the car. "It's a beauty. Original paint, solid frame, just needs mechanical work." "How long will it take?" "Couple months, probably. These things can't be rushed." She took another sip of coffee, seeming more satisfied now. "What are you doing here so early? Don't millionaires sleep in?" "How did you—" Ethan stopped. "You looked me up." "Maybe." Claire didn't look embarrassed. "You said something memorable to me. I was curious." "Find anything interesting?" "You started your company after another business failed. You grew up here, lost your mom young." Claire leaned against the Mustang. "The articles made you sound like a robot. All business, no personality." "That's pretty accurate, honestly." "I don't think so." Claire studied him. "Robots don't bring coffee to apologize. They don't look nervous. And they definitely don't admit when they're wrong." Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. "I'm not good at this." "At what?" "Talking to people, being vulnerable, any of it." He set down his coffee. "Marcus says I'm too guarded, that I keep everyone at arm's length. He's probably right." "Marcus is your business partner?" "And my best friend. Pretty much my only friend, if I'm being honest." Claire was quiet for a moment. That sounds lonely. It is. The admission surprised Ethan. He hadn't meant to say it out loud. So why do you do it? Because it's safer. Because if you don't let people in, they can't hurt you. But they also can't help you, Claire said. Can't make you laugh. Can't challenge you to be better. Can't love you. She paused. I know you didn't come here looking for therapy. But since you're being honest, I'll be honest too. I think your rule about white women touching your car is just a symptom. The real problem is you've got walls around your heart so high that nobody can get through. Ethan's chest felt tight. You figured that out from one conversation and a Google search? I figured it out because I do the same thing. Claire smiled sadly. Different walls, different reasons, but the result's the same. We're both alone. They stood there in the quiet garage, surrounded by tools and car parts and the smell of motor oil. Outside, the rain started to fall, soft at first, then harder, drumming on the roof. I don't want to be alone anymore, Ethan said quietly. Then stop choosing it. Is it really that simple? No, Claire said, but it's a start. The rain fell steadily while Ethan and Claire stood in the garage, the sound of it filling the silence between them. Claire took another sip of her coffee and studied Ethan's face. He looked uncertain, like he was standing on the edge of something and didn't know whether to jump. I should let you get back to work, Ethan said finally. Yeah, probably, but Claire didn't move, and neither did he. Can I ask you something? Ethan shifted his weight. Why are you being so nice to me? After what I said, you'd have every right to tell me to leave and never come back. Claire considered the question. You want the truth? Always. Because I've seen people at their worst before, and usually there's a reason behind it, not an excuse. A reason. She set down her coffee cup. My ex-boyfriend used to tell me I was too forgiving, that I made excuses for people who didn't deserve it. Maybe he was right, but I'd rather give someone a second chance and be wrong than write them off and miss out on knowing someone good. That's generous. Or naive. Depends on who you ask. Claire smiled. Plus, you brought coffee. That counts for something. Ethan laughed, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle he usually gave in business meetings. I'm glad I passed the test. Don't get cocky, you're still on probation. But her eyes were warm when she said it. They talked for another 10 minutes, the conversation flowing easier than Ethan expected. Claire told him about the Mustang restoration, her eyes lighting up as she described the work ahead. Ethan found himself genuinely interested, asking questions about the engine rebuild and the parts she'd need to order. Most people's eyes glaze over when I talk about cars, Claire said. I'm not most people. No, you're definitely not. She glanced at the clock on the wall. But I really do need to get to work. Raymond will be here soon, and I want to get the engine pulled before we open. Ethan nodded. Can I come back? Not because my car's broken, just to... He paused, searching for the right words. To see how the restoration's going? Claire tilted her head, considering. You want to hang around a garage and watch me work on a car? If you'll let me. Why? It was a fair question. Ethan thought about lying, making up some excuse about being interested in classic cars. But Claire had been honest with him, and he owed her the same. Because I want to get to know you, he said. And because I'm trying to do what Marcus said, be brave instead of safe. Claire's expression softened. Okay, you can come back. But I'm warning you, restoration work is slow and boring. Lots of cleaning parts and waiting for things to dry. It's not glamorous. I don't need glamorous. We'll see if you still feel that way after watching me scrub grease off cylinder heads for 2 hours. Claire grabbed her coffee. Come by Thursday afternoon if you want. I should have the engine pulled by then, and I can show you what I'm working with. Thursday afternoon, Ethan repeated. I'll be here. He left before he could say something awkward or overstay his welcome. As he drove to the office, the rain still coming down hard, he felt something unfamiliar in his chest. It took him a moment to identify it. Hope. Marcus knew something was different the moment Ethan walked into their office. You're smiling, Marcus said, looking up from his computer. That's weird. I smile. Not like that you don't. What happened? Ethan set his briefcase down and hung up his wet jacket. I took your advice, brought her coffee. The mechanic? Claire? Yeah. Marcus leaned back in his chair, grinning. And we talked. She's letting me come back Thursday to watch her work on the restoration project. That's huge, man. Good for you. Don't make it a big deal. Too late. It's already a big deal. Marcus stood up and clapped Ethan on the shoulder. I'm proud of you. I know that wasn't easy. It wasn't. Ethan sat at his own desk and booted up his computer. But it felt right, you know? Like I was finally doing something instead of just hiding. That's growth, brother. That's what it looks like. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, tackling emails and reviewing contracts. But Ethan found it hard to concentrate. His mind kept drifting back to the garage, to Claire's smile, to the way she'd studied him like she could see past all his defenses. Around noon, Marcus ordered lunch, sandwiches from their favorite deli. They ate in the office while going over the schedule for the new hires. So what's your plan? Marcus asked between bites. With what? With Claire. You just going to show up and watch her work? That's your strategy? Ethan frowned. I don't have a strategy. I'm just trying to be present, to show up. Isn't that what you told me to do? Yeah, but you're also trying to get to know her, right? Maybe become friends? Or more than friends? I haven't thought that far ahead. Marcus gave him a skeptical look. You think 10 steps ahead in business? You're telling me you haven't thought about where this is going? Ethan set down his sandwich. Honestly, I'm trying not to. Every time I start planning or strategizing, I get in my own head. I start thinking about all the ways it could go wrong, so I'm just taking it one day at a time. That's actually pretty healthy. Don't sound so surprised, Marcus laughed. I'm just saying, for someone who likes control as much as you do, that's progress. He was right. Ethan had spent years trying to control every variable, anticipate every outcome. It was how he'd built his business. But with Claire, he didn't want to strategize. He just wanted to see what happened naturally. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. Thursday afternoon arrived faster than Ethan expected. He left the office early, telling Marcus he had an appointment. Marcus just smirked and told him to have fun. Ethan changed out of his suit before going to the garage. He put on jeans and a plain black t-shirt, not wanting to overdress. He felt ridiculous for carrying what he wore to watch someone work on a car, but he couldn't help it. When he arrived at Precision Auto, the parking lot was busier than it had been on Monday. Several cars were parked in the bays, and he could hear the sound of power tools and conversation. He walked inside and found Claire exactly where he'd expected, in the bay with the Mustang. The engine was out now, sitting on a stand next to the car. Claire was wearing safety goggles and had grease up to her elbows. She was carefully cleaning one of the engine components with a wire brush. Hey, Ethan said. Claire looked up and smiled. You actually came. I said I would. People say a lot of things. She set down the brush and pulled off her goggles. Come look at this. It's pretty cool. Ethan walked over to the engine. Up close, he could see how complex it was, a maze of parts and pieces that somehow all worked together to make the car run. This is the engine block, Claire explained, pointing. It's in pretty good shape, actually. Just needs a thorough cleaning and new gaskets. But these, she gestured to a row of metal cylinders on the workbench, are the pistons. They're completely shot. I'm going to have to replace all of them. How can you tell they're shot? Claire picked one up and showed him the scoring on the metal. See these marks? That's from years of wear. The metal's degraded. If I tried to use these, the engine would leak oil and lose compression. It wouldn't run right. Ethan nodded, genuinely interested. How did you learn all this? My uncle owned a garage when I was growing up. I used to spend summers there, handing him tools and asking a million questions. Claire's face softened with the memory. He was patient with me, taught me everything he knew. When he retired, he gave me all. His tools, said I'd earned them. That's a nice memory. Yeah. Claire set down the piston. What about you? How'd you get into tech? By accident, mostly. I was studying business in college, needed money, and started building websites on the side. Turned out I was good at it. After graduation, I kept doing it, built up a client base, hired some developers. Ethan shrugged. One thing led to another. The article said your first business failed. It did. Spectacularly. Ethan's jaw tightened. That was the Jennifer situation. She was my business partner, or I thought she was. Turns out she was just waiting for the right moment to clean out the accounts. Claire winced. That's awful. It was, but it taught me a lot about trust, about protecting myself, about... He stopped, realizing what he was about to say. About building walls, Claire finished for him. Yeah. They were quiet for a moment. Around them, the garage hummed with activity. Raymond was talking to a customer near the office. Someone's radio played classic rock at low volume. Can I tell you something? Claire asked. Sure. When you first said what you said about not letting white women touch your car, I was hurt. But I was also angry at myself. Why angry at yourself? Because part of me understood. Claire picked up the wire brush again, turning it over in her hands. I told you about my ex, Derek. What I didn't tell you is that for a long time after we broke up, I avoided dating altogether, made excuses, stayed busy, convinced myself I was fine alone. What changed? I realized I was punishing all men because of one jerk, and that wasn't fair, to them or to me. Claire met his eyes. I'm not saying what you did was the same. Your experience was probably worse, and it happened when you were more vulnerable. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I get it. I get how pain can make you defensive, how it can make you push people away before they can hurt you. Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for giving me the chance. Claire gestured to a stool near the workbench. You can sit if you want. This is going to take a while. Ethan sat and watched her work. She moved with quiet confidence, her hands sure and steady. She explained what she was doing as she went, pointing out damage, describing the repair process, showing him parts that needed to be replaced. It was peaceful in a way Ethan hadn't expected. There was something meditative about watching skilled hands do careful work. No rushing, no cutting corners, just patience and precision. You really love this, he observed after a while. I really do. Claire smiled without looking up. There's something satisfying about taking something broken and making it whole again, about seeing the potential in something everyone else has given up on. That's beautiful. It's just cars. No, Ethan said, it's more than that. It's restoration, redemption, second chances. Claire paused and looked at him. Her blue eyes were thoughtful. You're more poetic than the business article suggested. I contain multitudes, she laughed. Apparently. They fell into an easy rhythm after that. Claire worked, Ethan watched and asked occasional questions. She told him about other restoration projects she'd done, a 72 Camaro, a 55 Thunderbird, a 69 Charger that had taken her 6 months to complete. He told her about his company, about the satisfaction of building something from nothing, about the fear that it could all disappear. You're afraid you'll lose it, Claire said. It wasn't a question. Every day. Because of what happened before, with Jennifer? Partly, but also because Ethan hesitated. Nothing in my life has ever felt permanent. My mom died, my dad left, Jennifer stole from me. I've learned not to trust stability, to always be waiting for the other shoe to drop. Claire set down her tools and turned to face him fully. That's exhausting. It is. You deserve to feel secure, Ethan. You've earned what you have. Have I? Or did I just get lucky? Both can be true. Claire wiped her hands on a rag. Luck might get you started, but skill and hard work keep you going. You've kept going for years. That's not luck. That's you. Ethan felt his throat get tight. He'd never thought about it that way. He'd always attributed his success to fortunate timing, good breaks, being in the right place at the right moment. But maybe Claire was right. Maybe he'd actually earned it. Can I ask you something? Claire said. Yeah. Why did you really come back here? After the first time, I mean. You could have gone to any other garage, somewhere you didn't have history. Ethan thought about lying, about giving some safe answer, but he was tired of hiding. Because you saw me at my worst and didn't flinch, he said. You didn't yell or lecture or make me feel like garbage. You just stepped back, with dignity, and it made me want to be better. Claire's expression softened. That's a good reason. Is it? Yeah, because it's honest. And because you're actually trying to be better, not just saying it. How do you know I'm not just saying it? Because you're here. Claire gestured around the garage. You showed up. You brought coffee. You're sitting on an uncomfortable stool watching me clean engine parts instead of doing whatever millionaires do on Thursday afternoons. That's effort. That counts. Ethan smiled. For the record, most millionaires just work. We're not that exciting. Disappointing. I was picturing yachts and caviar. Sorry to burst your bubble. They grinned at each other, and Ethan realized he was genuinely happy, not pleased with a business deal or satisfied with an accomplishment, just happy, content, present in the moment without worrying about the next thing. It was a feeling he'd almost forgotten existed. Lena found Claire in the break room an hour after Ethan left. So, Lena said, leaning against the counter, that was him, right? The Mercedes guy. His name is Ethan. I know his name. Raymond told me. Lena crossed her arms. He was here for like 3 hours, Claire, just watching you work. He's interested in the restoration. Uh-huh. And I'm interested in quantum physics. Lena raised an eyebrow. Girl, that man is interested in you. Claire felt heat creep up her neck. We're just talking. Sure you are. Just talking for 3 hours. It wasn't 3 hours. It was absolutely 3 hours. Raymond timed it. Lena's expression turned more serious. Look, I'm not judging. If you like him, that's your business. I want to make sure you're being careful. Careful how? You have a habit of seeing the best in people, of giving second chances to men who don't deserve them. Lena held up a hand before Claire could protest. I know Derek was different, but this guy, he started off saying something really messed up. And yeah, he apologized. But that doesn't erase what he said. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're getting attached to someone who might hurt you. Claire sat down at the break room table. Maybe, but I'm not going to live my life afraid of being hurt. That's not living. That's just existing. Lena sighed and sat down across from her. You're right. I know you're right. I just worry about you. I know, and I love you for it. Claire reached across the table and squeezed Lena's hand. But I need to do this. I need to see if he's genuine, if this could be something. What if it's not? Then it's not, and I'll survive, just like I survived Derek. Claire smiled. I'm stronger than you think. I know you're strong. That's not what I'm worried about. Lena squeezed back. Just promise me you'll be smart about this, that you won't ignore red flags or make excuses if things get weird. I promise. Good. Lena stood up. Now come on. Raymond needs help with that Ford, and I've got a hot date with an oil change. Claire laughed and followed her friend back to the garage floor. But as she worked, she found her mind drifting to Ethan, to the way he'd listened when she talked about her work, the way he'd been honest about his fears, the way he'd looked at her like she was someone worth knowing. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at her that way. That evening, Ethan met his father for dinner. It wasn't something they did often, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, awkward meals where they made small talk and avoided discussing anything real. But Thomas Cole had called earlier in the week asking to meet, and Ethan hadn't been able to come up with a good excuse. They met at a steakhouse downtown, the kind of place with white tablecloths and a sommelier. Thomas was already there when Ethan arrived, sitting at a corner table and nursing a bourbon. Ethan. Thomas stood and shook his son's hand. He was 60 now, with gray hair and a weathered face. He looked older than Ethan remembered. Dad, they sat and ordered. The conversation was strained at first, moving through safe topics, work, the weather, sports. Thomas asked about the business. Ethan gave vague answers. You seem distracted, Thomas observed. I've got a lot on my mind. Anything you want to talk about? Ethan almost said no. That was their pattern. Keep things surface level, don't dig too deep. But something in him had shifted over the past week. Maybe it was Claire's influence. Maybe it was finally being tired of hiding. Why did you leave? Ethan asked. Thomas's hand froze halfway to his glass. What? After Mom died. Why did you leave? Ethan. I need to know. Ethan's voice was steady but firm. I've spent 18 years wondering, trying to understand. So tell me, why did you abandon me? Thomas set down his glass. He looked older, suddenly, tired. Because I was broken. Your mother's death. It destroyed me. And I didn't know how to be a father while I was falling apart. I thought... He stopped, shook his head. I thought you'd be better off without me dragging you down. That wasn't your choice to make. I know, believe me, I know. Thomas's eyes were wet. Not a day goes by that I don't regret it, that I don't wish I'd been stronger, better, the father you deserved. Ethan felt tears prick his own eyes. He'd imagined this conversation so many times, had rehearsed what he'd say, how he'd make his father understand the damage he'd caused. But now that the moment was here, he just felt sad. Sad for both of them, for all the years they'd lost. You taught me to be afraid, Ethan said quietly, to not need people, to protect myself above everything else. Do you know how lonely that is? Yes, Thomas's voice broke. I know exactly how lonely it is. I've been living it for 18 years. They sat in silence while their food arrived. Neither of them touched it right away. I'm trying to be better, Ethan said finally. To let people in, to stop being so afraid of getting hurt. That's good. That's really good. Thomas looked at him. Is there someone? Maybe. I don't know yet. Ethan pushed food around his plate. She scares me, not because of who she is, but because of how much I want to let her in. That's how you know it matters. Is it? Yeah. Thomas smiled sadly. Your mother scared me too. In the best way. She made me want to be braver than I was. And for a while, I was. Until she died. And you forgot how. Until I forgot how, Thomas agreed. Don't make my mistake, son. Don't let fear win. If this woman is worth it, fight for her. Fight for the chance to be happy. Ethan nodded. They finished their meal in more comfortable silence. When it was over and they were standing outside the restaurant, Thomas pulled Ethan into an unexpected hug. I'm sorry, Thomas said, for leaving, for not being there, for teaching you all the wrong lessons. Ethan hugged him back, something he hadn't done in almost 2 decades. I'm sorry, too, for shutting you out, for holding on to anger. We've both got work to do. Yeah, but at least we're finally talking about it. They parted ways with a promise to meet again soon. And this time, Ethan thought they might actually mean it. As he drove home, Ethan thought about what his father had said. Don't let fear win. It was simple advice, but it resonated. He'd let fear control him for so long. Fear of loss, fear of betrayal, fear of vulnerability. And where it had gotten him. Successful in business, but isolated in life. He didn't want to live that way anymore. When he got home, he pulled out his phone and texted Claire. Thanks for today. Same time next week? Her response came quickly. Absolutely. Bring coffee again. Ethan smiled and sent back, deal. It was a small step, but it was forward. The following week fell into a rhythm that surprised Ethan with how natural it felt. He showed up at Precision Auto every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, always bringing coffee, Claire's with 3 sugars and lots of cream, his own black. He'd sit on the uncomfortable stool and watch her work on the Mustang while they talked about everything and nothing. Claire told him about growing up with her mom and younger brother after her dad left, about community college and the scholarship she'd earned, about her first job at a chain auto shop where the manager kept trying to stick her at the front desk instead of in the garage. He kept saying I had a nice smile, Claire said, making a face. Like that was more valuable than the fact that I could diagnose a transmission problem in 15 minutes. What did you do? I quit. Found a job at a place that actually valued my skills. She wiped her hands on a rag. Life's too short to work for people who don't respect you. Ethan found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone except Marcus, about the insurance adjusters after his mother's death and how they'd made him feel small and powerless, about Jennifer and the specific way betrayal feels when it comes from someone you trusted, about the years he'd spent building walls brick by brick until he couldn't remember what it felt like to be open. But you're here now, Claire said. That counts. Does it? I still have all the same fears, all the same baggage. Everyone has baggage. The question is whether you let it define you or whether you work to heal it. Claire looked at him directly. You're working to heal it. I can see that. Something warm spread through Ethan's chest. How can you tell? Because you keep showing up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it would be easier to hide. She smiled. That's courage, Ethan. Real courage. By the end of the second week, they'd established a comfortable friendship. Claire introduced him to Raymond and the other mechanics who accepted his presence with varying degrees of curiosity. Lena remained skeptical, but polite, watching Ethan with sharp eyes whenever he was around. "Your friend doesn't like me," Ethan said to Claire one afternoon. "Lena's protective. She's seen me get hurt before." "By Derek?" "Among others." Claire adjusted a wrench. "She'll come around when she sees you're not going to pull anything." "What if I do pull something? Not intentionally, but what if I mess this up?" Claire stopped working and looked at him. "Then you mess it up, and we deal with it like adults. But you can't spend your whole life afraid of making mistakes, Ethan. Sometimes you just have to trust yourself." It was good advice. Advice Ethan tried to follow when, at the end of the second week, he worked up the courage to ask Claire to dinner. "Not as a thank you," he clarified quickly. "Just as friends. Or maybe more than friends. If you're interested. No pressure." Claire studied him for a long moment, and Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. This was the moment. She could say no and he'd have to accept it, and everything would become awkward. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay? Yes, dinner, but I have conditions." "Name them." 1. We split the bill. I don't need you to take care of me financially. Fair. 2. We keep it casual. No fancy restaurants where I have to dress up. I spend all day in coveralls. I want to be comfortable. Also fair. 3. If at any point this starts to feel weird or forced, we acknowledge it and stay friends. I value what we have. I don't want to lose it by pushing for something that isn't there. Ethan felt a rush of relief and admiration. She was protecting herself while still taking the risk, smart and brave at the same time. "Agreed," he said. "All 3 conditions." "Then yes, dinner sounds good." They went that Friday to a small Italian place Claire suggested, a neighborhood spot with red and white checkered tablecloths and a menu written on a chalkboard. The food was simple and delicious. The atmosphere was warm without being pretentious. Claire wore jeans and a green sweater that brought out her eyes. She'd left her hair down, and Ethan found himself distracted by the way it caught the light. "You're staring," she said, amused. "Sorry, you look nice." "I clean up okay when I'm not covered in grease." She took a sip of wine. "So tell me something I don't know about you." "Like what?" "I don't know. A secret? A dream? Something you haven't told me yet." Ethan thought for a moment. "I used to want to be a teacher." "Really?" "Yeah. In high school, I had this English teacher, Mr. Harrison. He was the first person who really saw me, who believed I was smart enough to go to college, to do something with my life." Ethan pushed pasta around his plate. "I thought maybe I could do that for other kids, be the person who saw them." "Why didn't you?" "Because teachers don't make any money, and after my mom died, money became important. Security became everything." He met her eyes. "I don't regret the path I took. I've built something I'm proud of. But sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd chosen differently. Maybe it's not too late. You could mentor young entrepreneurs, teach business classes at community colleges. There are ways to do both." Ethan hadn't thought of that. "Maybe you're right. Your turn," Claire said. "Ask me something." "What's your dream? The big one you don't tell people." Claire smiled. "I want to open my own restoration shop, specialize in classic cars, take on the projects other garages won't touch, build a reputation for quality work and fair prices." Her face lit up as she talked. "I've been saving for years. I've got a business plan, cost projections, everything. I'm about 2 years away from having enough capital to make it real." "That's incredible. Why don't you tell people?" "Because it feels too big sometimes, too ambitious, like maybe I'm reaching for something I can't actually achieve." "That's fear talking." "I know, but that doesn't make it easier to ignore." "You'll do it," Ethan said with certainty. "You're too talented and too determined not to." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've watched you work. You don't cut corners. You don't give up when things get hard. And you genuinely care about doing things right." He reached across the table and took her hand. "That's the recipe for success. Talent plus determination plus integrity." Claire looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for letting me." They talked through dinner and dessert, the conversation flowing easily. Ethan couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this comfortable with someone, this seen. When the check came, Claire insisted on splitting it as promised. They argued good-naturedly about it until Ethan relented. "You're stubborn," he said. "You're just figuring this out?" Outside, the night was cool and clear. They walked slowly toward Claire's car, neither of them quite ready for the evening to end. "I had a really good time," Claire said. "Me too." They stood by her car, the streetlight casting long shadows. Ethan wanted to kiss her, wanted it so badly his chest ached with it, but something held him back, fear of rushing, fear of ruining what they'd built. Claire seemed to read his mind. She stepped closer and put a hand on his chest. "You're overthinking." "Probably. Can I tell you something?" "Always. I want to kiss you, but I'm not going to. Not tonight." Ethan's heart sank. "Why not?" "Because I want to be sure. About what this is. About what we both want." She kept her hand on his chest, her eyes on his. "I like you, Ethan, more than I expected to. But I've rushed into things before, and it always ends badly. So I'm asking, can we take this slow? Can we give it time to be real?" Disappointment warred with respect in Ethan's chest. Respect won. "Yeah, we can do that. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for being honest." Claire smiled and squeezed his hand. "I'll see you Tuesday?" "With coffee." "With coffee." Ethan watched her drive away, then stood in the parking lot for a long moment, breathing in the cool night air. His body was humming with unspent energy, with the almost kiss that hadn't happened. But underneath the disappointment, he felt something else. Gratitude. Because Claire was right. They were building something real, something worth taking time with. And for once in his life, Ethan was willing to be patient. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and stolen afternoons at the garage. Ethan found himself canceling meetings, rearranging his schedule, finding excuses to leave the office early. Marcus noticed but didn't comment beyond the occasional knowing smile. "You're happy," Marcus said one afternoon. "It's weird seeing you like this." "Like what?" "Light. Like you're not carrying the weight of the world anymore." Ethan realized it was true. The constant tension in his shoulders had eased. He smiled more, laughed easier. Even his sleep had improved. No more lying awake at 3 a.m. worrying about everything that could go wrong. Claire was doing that to him, or maybe he was doing it to himself, and Claire was just giving him permission. The Mustang restoration was coming along beautifully. Claire had rebuilt the engine, replaced the pistons, and was now working on the electrical system. She let Ethan help with small tasks, holding flashlights, organizing parts, cleaning tools. He wasn't skilled enough to do real mechanical work, but he was learning. "You're getting better at this," Claire said one afternoon, as he successfully identified a faulty relay. "I have a good teacher." "Flattery will get you everywhere." They were grinning at each other when Lena walked by. She stopped and looked at them, her expression softening. "You two are disgusting," she said, but there was warmth in her voice. "Does this mean you approve?" Claire asked. "It means I'm watching him." Lena pointed at Ethan. "But yeah, maybe I approve. A little." After she walked away, Claire laughed. That's high praise from Lena. "I'll take it." That weekend, they went on their second date, a trip to the Art Institute followed by lunch at a food truck park. Claire confessed she didn't know much about art, but Ethan enjoyed watching her react to the paintings, the way her face changed as she studied each piece. "What do you think of that one?" he asked, pointing to an abstract piece that was mostly blue and white swirls. "I think it looks like someone spilled paint and called it art," Claire said honestly. "But what do I know? Maybe that's the point." Ethan laughed. "I like that you're honest. Some people pretend to understand art just to seem sophisticated. Life's too short to pretend to be someone you're not." They ate Korean barbecue tacos and talked about their childhoods, the good parts and the hard parts. Claire told him about the summer her uncle taught her to rebuild her first engine. Ethan told her about the last vacation he took with his mother before she died, a weekend at a lake house where they'd fished and played cards and laughed until their sides hurt. "You keep her alive by remembering," Claire said gently. "I try, but sometimes the memories hurt too much." "That means they matter. Pain and love are two sides of the same coin, Ethan. You can't have one without the other." It was exactly what he needed to hear, even if he hadn't known it. That afternoon, as they walked through Millennium Park, Ethan reached for Claire's hand. She laced her fingers through his without hesitation, and they walked like that for hours, talking and laughing and simply being together. "This is nice," Claire said as they watched the fountain. "Yeah, it is. I'm glad you brought me coffee that first morning. I'm glad you didn't tell me to get lost. I considered it. I know. I wouldn't have blamed you." Claire squeezed his hand. "You're doing the work. That matters more than the mistake." They were perfect words, perfectly timed. Ethan felt something shift in his chest, a letting go of old shame, old fear. He was doing the work. He was trying to be better, and Claire saw that, believed in that. It was enough. A month after their first date, Marcus threw a small gathering at his house. Nothing formal, just close friends and business associates. He insisted Ethan bring Claire. "It's time I met this woman who's got you smiling like an idiot," Marcus said. Claire was nervous about it, which surprised Ethan. She was usually so confident. "What if they don't like me?" she asked the night before the party. "They'll love you. How could they not? I'm a mechanic, Ethan. These are business people, tech people. I'm going to stick out. You're more than your job. And anyway, you're the most genuine person I know. That's worth more than any job title." But on the night of the party, as they walked up to Marcus's house, Ethan felt his own nerves kick in. This was important. These were the people in his life, and he wanted them to see what he saw in Claire, wanted them to understand why she mattered. Marcus greeted them at the door, pulling Ethan into a hug and extending a hand to Claire. "You must be Claire. I've heard a lot about you." "All good things, I hope." "Mostly," Marcus grinned. "Come in. My wife's been dying to meet you." Jasmine swept in a moment later, a beautiful woman with dark skin and a megawatt smile. She hugged Claire like they were old friends. "I'm so glad you're here. Ethan hasn't stopped talking about you." Claire shot Ethan an amused look. "Is that so?" "Don't believe anything they tell you," Ethan said, but he was smiling. The party was relaxed and fun. About 20 people filled Marcus's house, a mix of colleagues, friends, and neighbors. Claire fit in better than she'd feared, her natural warmth and humor drawing people to her. Ethan watched as she chatted with Jasmine about classic cars, laughed at Marcus's terrible jokes, and held her own in a conversation about entrepreneurship with two of Ethan's investors. "She's great," Marcus said, coming to stand next to Ethan. "You did good, man." "I know. So when are you going to tell her you're falling for her?" Ethan nearly choked on his drink. "What? Come on, it's obvious. You look at her like she hung the moon. It's too soon for that." "Says who? There's no timeline for this stuff. If you feel it, you feel it." Ethan watched Claire across the room. She was laughing at something Jasmine said, her whole face lighting up. His chest felt tight with affection. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "Of course you are. That's how you know it's real." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "But don't let the fear stop you from telling her. She deserves to know." Later, as the party wound down, Ethan and Claire found themselves on Marcus's back deck, looking up at the stars. The night was warm, the air full of the sound of crickets and distant traffic. "Your friends are nice," Claire said. "They liked you." "How can you tell?" "Because Marcus never likes anyone, and he couldn't stop singing your praises." Ethan moved closer. "You were worried for nothing." "I'm good at that. Worrying about nothing." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Ethan made a decision, a brave one. "Claire." "Yeah?" "I'm really glad I met you. I know it started off rocky, and I know we're taking things slow, but I wanted you to know. You've changed my life. In the best way." Claire turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "You've changed mine too." "Yeah?" "Yeah. You've reminded me that not everyone is out to hurt me, that it's okay to take risks, to be vulnerable." She stepped closer. "I was so guarded when we met, so convinced that I was fine on my own, but the truth is, I was lonely. I just didn't want to admit it. And now? Now I'm still a little scared, but I'm also hopeful. Because of you." Ethan reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Can I kiss you now?" Claire smiled. "I thought you'd never ask." When their lips met, it was soft and sweet and perfect. Everything Ethan had imagined and more. Claire's hands came up to his chest and his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Wow, Claire said. Yeah, wow. They kissed again, deeper this time. And for once, Ethan wasn't thinking about the future or worrying about what could go wrong. He was just present, just grateful, just happy. The following week, Ethan was on top of the world. Work was going well. His relationship with Claire was deepening. Even his relationship with his father had improved. They'd met for lunch twice since that dinner, actually talking instead of just going through the motions. Everything felt aligned. Right. Like he'd finally figured out how to live instead of just survive. On Saturday, Marcus invited him to a barbecue at his house, another casual gathering with friends. Ethan brought Claire, and they spent the afternoon eating burgers and playing cornhole and laughing. Ethan felt loose and happy in a way he hadn't in years, maybe ever. That's when he made the mistake. He was standing around the grill with Marcus and a few other guys, all of them drinking beer and talking trash. Someone made a joke about car trouble, and Ethan laughed. "I used to have this rule," he said, the words coming out easy, unguarded. "I wouldn't let white women touch my car. Sounds crazy, right?" The guys laughed, thinking it was a joke. Marcus shot him a warning look, but Ethan didn't notice. He was too caught up in the moment, in the camaraderie, in feeling like he belonged. "I'm serious," he continued. "Had this whole thing about it. Wouldn't let them near it." He was about to explain the context, about how he'd overcome it, about Claire. But before he could, he glanced across the yard and saw her standing there. She was frozen, holding a paper plate with a half-eaten burger. Her face had gone pale. She was staring at him with an expression that made Ethan's stomach drop. She'd heard him. And from where she was standing, she'd only heard the worst part. "Claire," Ethan started, but she was already walking away, setting down her plate and heading toward the house. Ethan went after her, his heart pounding. "Claire, wait. Let me explain." She didn't stop. She grabbed her purse from inside and headed for the front door. "Claire, please." She finally turned to face him on the front lawn. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "You were joking about it, about what you said to me, like it was some funny story to tell your friends." "No, that's not. I was going to explain. I was going to tell them how wrong I was, how you helped me see. But you didn't. You just made it a punchline." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I thought you'd changed. I thought you understood how much that hurt, but you're still carrying it around like it's something to be proud of." "I'm not proud of it. Claire, you have to believe me. I don't have to do anything." Claire's voice cracked. "I gave you a chance. I trusted you. I let myself care about you, and you made a joke out of it." "It wasn't a joke. I was trying to—" "I don't want to hear it." Claire wiped her eyes. "I need to go." She got in her car and drove away before Ethan could say anything else. He stood on the lawn, feeling like he'd been punched in the stomach. Marcus came out a moment later. "What happened?" "I messed up." Ethan's voice was hollow. "I really messed up." "What did you say to her?" Ethan explained, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Marcus listened, his expression getting more and more disappointed. "Man," Marcus said finally, "that was stupid." "I know. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you just undid weeks of work in about 30 seconds. I was going to explain. I was going to tell them the whole story. But you didn't. You started with the worst part and made it sound casual, like it didn't matter." Marcus shook his head. "She trusted you, Ethan, and you just proved that maybe she shouldn't have." The words hit hard, because they were true. Ethan had been so caught up in feeling accepted, in feeling like he belonged, that he'd forgotten to protect what mattered most. He'd forgotten Claire. "What do I do?" Ethan asked. "I don't know, man, but you better figure it out fast, because if you lose her over this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Ethan drove home in a daze. He tried calling Claire. It went to voicemail. He texted her. No response. He sat in his apartment staring at his phone, willing it to ring, but it stayed silent. Finally, around midnight, he typed out a long message. "I'm so sorry, you're right. What I said was thoughtless and hurtful. I wasn't joking about you. I was trying to share how far I've come, but I did it in the worst possible way. You deserve better than that. You deserve better than me. But if you'll give me one more chance, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth it." He sent it and waited. No response came. Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. The look on Claire's face, the hurt in her eyes, the way she'd walked away without looking back. He'd spent so many years protecting himself from pain, and now, when he'd finally opened up, finally let someone in, he'd managed to hurt them in the exact way he'd been trying not to. Maybe he wasn't ready for this. Maybe he didn't deserve Claire's faith in him. Maybe Marcus was wrong, and some people were just meant to be alone. But even as he thought it, Ethan knew he couldn't accept that, couldn't give up without fighting. Claire had given him a chance when he didn't deserve it, had seen potential in him when he only saw fear. He owed her the same. He owed it to himself. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow he'd figure out how to make this right, how to prove that he was more than his worst moment. He just hoped it wasn't too late.